Pastor Doug here from Crossroads. It's great to be with you. I hope that today's message will draw you closer to Jesus.
Well, we've made it. It's Christmas week, everybody. How many of you would say, I am totally done, I am there, I'm ready right now? There's a few of you. Good. Well done. Way to get things done ahead of time. For the rest of us, we still have a few more days. It's great. We still got time. But since you did so well on audience participation during the trivia portion of this, I thought we'd let that roll a little bit more. So I have a question for you. What are the Christmas staples? In other words, what do you find at every single Christmas party, everywhere there are people and Christmas? What type of things are there all the time? Just go ahead and shout them out. What are they? Cookies, yeah. What else? Candles, trees. What else? Presents, yeah. Excellent. You got a number of them. Good job. There are also things like food, family, music, all those sorts of things. But you know what didn't pop up first in mind to anybody? At least I don't think so. Difficult people. Difficult people. But let's face it, difficult people are a staple of Christmas, aren't they? I mean, let's face it, every single great Christmas movie has difficult people that you got to deal with. I mean, look at Home Alone. Kevin's got to deal with Buzz, and he's got to deal with the wet bandits. Okay? You got a point there. Yes, that's true. The people of Whoville, who do they have to deal with? The Grinch. They have to deal with the Grinch. And Elf, Buddy has to deal with his father, Walter Hobbs. Not a very nice guy. And then, of course, you have Christmas Vacation, where Walter has to deal with his cousin Eddie and his boss. But the reality is that our Christmas stories tend to be a lot like this. We have difficult people that we encounter. There's that person who's trying to back into a parking space in the middle of a crowded parking lot and almost causing accidents. We have the relative who's constantly asking us, so when are you getting married? When are you having kids? You have the estranged family members who are always going to show up but hate each other, and they're just going to stand there staring daggers at each other the entire time. And then, of course, there are the broken relationships, the family expectations, the custody situations, and all of the hurt and pain that goes along with those things as well. Yes, difficult people are a staple of Christmas. Now, how do we handle the difficult people that we might encounter this Christmas season? That come into our story, that come into our lives as part of the season. How do we handle them? And how do we make it so that we don't just survive these encounters this Christmas? How do we make it so that we actually thrive in those moments when we encounter difficult people? Well, that's what we're going to talk about this morning as we continue our series, Survival Guide. This morning, we're going to look at a story, and we're going to look at a story of Jesus encountering a difficult person. And we're going to see the gift that he gives to that person. And we're going to learn that if we want to thrive with difficult people this year, we're going to need to learn to receive that same gift and then give it to others. And if we're willing to do this, if we're willing to step into this space, we might just find that this Christmas is going to be one that we can remember. So let's jump right into our passage this morning. We're going to be in Luke 19. And Luke 19, verse 1. It starts out like this. Jesus entered Jericho. And he was a chief tax collector and was wealthy. He wanted to see who Jesus was, but because he was short, he could not see over the crowd. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore fig tree to see him, since Jesus was coming that way. So right at the beginning of the story, we get introduced to our main character, Zacchaeus. Now, Zacchaeus was a difficult person. But to those in the crowd that day, he was something else. He was a villain. He was a villain. And if you had asked each one of the individual people in that crowd how they thought about him, it would be hate, 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 loathe entirely. Why? the story tells us. First off, he was wealthy. And that always stirs up some kind of feelings in some. The jealousy, the envy, the resentment. But more than that, it was also how he acquired that wealth. See, as a tax collector, that meant that he was a Jew working for the hated Roman government. Not only was he working for the hated Roman government, he was using his position as a tax collector to rob his own people to enrich himself. Worse than that, the Bible also said he was short. Sorry, short people. That's all right. Somebody has to enjoy sitting in the airline seats and stadium seats. It's okay. We love you. But Zacchaeus wasn't just disliked. He checked off every single box of somebody you do not want at your Christmas dinner. He's the Grinch. He's Ebenezer Scrooge. And he knows it. So let's look to see how this gets handled. Because, see, Zacchaeus is on a collision course with Jesus. And we get to see how Jesus is going to handle this difficult person. So let's look at verse 5. When Jesus reached the spot, he looked up and said to him, "Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today." So he came down at once and welcomed him gladly. What was it that Jesus did? What did Jesus do for Zacchaeus? Well, the first thing we see is that he notices Zacchaeus. He notices him. He sees him. He stops in the middle of what he's doing and he looks up and sees him. And the thing about what Jesus did to him, he didn't just see him with his eyes. He saw him for who he was. He didn't just see somebody up in the tree. He didn't just see somebody that the crowds absolutely hated and reviled. He didn't just see the difficult person in the story. He didn't just see him through the lens of his reputation or through all the lens of all the things he did. He saw him as a person. And that was something Zacchaeus was not expecting, something he was not prepared for. And not only that, Jesus takes that a step further. He takes it a step further. He invites himself over to Zacchaeus' house. And I don't know if we can properly get the understanding or the context of how big of a deal this was, how important a moment this was in the life of Zacchaeus, and how much of a stir that this would have caused by Jesus doing it. See, this person, Zacchaeus, was somebody who experienced nothing but social rejection in his life. And in many ways, it was deserved social ostracism. He had kind of earned the reputation that he got. But nobody wanted to go over to Zacchaeus' house. Nobody wanted to associate with someone like this. And now you have the most famous rabbi of the day is willing to hang out with you. And not only willing to hang out with you, to declare that he wants to in front of an entire crowd of people who hated him. I don't think we realize what an unbelievable gift this was that Jesus gave to Zacchaeus. It was a remarkable act of mercy, of grace, and ultimately of love. All for a difficult person that nobody in the crowd thought deserved it. This was a shocking move by Jesus, and it absolutely sent shockwaves through the crowd. In verse 7, the crowd reacted like this. All the people saw this and began to mutter, He's gone to be the guest of a sinner. He's gone to be the guest of a sinner. And that's the thing we have to understand about Jesus' extravagant gift of love to Zacchaeus. Jesus gave him that gift before Zacchaeus believed, before he changed anything at all. What should our response to difficult people be this Christmas? We're supposed to love them the way Jesus did. Love them the way Jesus did. But that's the thing, isn't it? That is way, way easier to say than do. That is way easier to say than do. Let's be honest. Most of us can probably say that we struggle with loving the difficult people in our lives. We struggle with that, especially around the holidays, especially when we have to deal with people we don't want to deal with, when we're rushed, when we're crowded, when we're overstressed, all those things. It makes it so much more difficult to deal with difficult people. But let me ask you something. How many of you would say that you are bad at receiving gifts? You're bad at receiving gifts. Not bad at giving gifts, bad at receiving gifts. Maybe you're the kind of person who says, you don't really have to do that for me. You don't have to do that. This is way, way too much. Please, don't spend money on me. I'm fine, really. I don't need anything. I'm fine. What if that same instinct to be bad at receiving gifts shows up in our relationship with God? What if one of the reasons we struggle to love difficult people is because deep down we struggle to let God love us? Here's my contention. We can't give what we haven't truly received. We can't give what we haven't truly received. The Apostle John says it this way in 1 John 4:19. He says, we love because he first loved us. We love because he first loved us. Not because we tried harder, not because we got better, but because he first loved us. Our love flows out of God's love for us. And yet, if I'm honest, there are times in my life where I know that verse, but I don't really live in that reality. Let me tell you a story. There was a time recently where God really showed me my failings in this area. It was earlier this summer. I was running a 5K race. And I was really excited about this race because I've been training hard, and I really thought I had a great chance to set my personal record at that distance. And so the race came and it started, and I'm running really well. I'm having a great race. And it's coming up near the end of the race. And around the corner, and I see two paths, and I don't know. The course is not marked out well. I don't know where I'm going. And I literally have to stop in the middle of the race, and I'm looking around trying to figure out where to go. And in my haste and in my panic, as I'm realizing I don't know where to go, I turn around and I see other runners running in that direction. And I take off, and I figure, that must be it. It must be over there. Lo and behold, those were runners who were all behind me, and had already run that part of the course. And so I end up running an extra half mile on my 5K. Needless to say, I did not set my personal record for that race that day. And I remember being frustrated with myself about that. Incredibly frustrated. And the problem is like that frustration didn't just last that day. It lingered to the next day, and the next day, and the next day. And I'm telling this to a friend at the cafe the one day, and I'm telling the whole story, and he looked at me and said, it sounds like you're being really, really hard on yourself. And I'm like, I don't know, maybe. But it's after like 3 days of being really upset about this, I'm okay, there's probably something here. It's starting to sound like there's something more going on here in me than just simply frustration over a race that didn't turn out the way I wanted to. So I went to a cafe the next day, and I'm journaling about this, and I'm trying to get the sense of it. And it felt like God was telling me in that moment, like, this is about more than a race. Why is it you feel like whenever you don't perform well, there's something going on with you, that there's something in your life that feels wrong? Is there something going on where you have trouble with your worth? And as I'm journaling this and I'm trying to process this and I'm trying to read through this, I'm reading in a book, and it was a book I've been reading for a few weeks, and I come up on a story of a guy who went through almost the exact same thing. And he was frustrated at himself and angry at himself, and he goes on a walk, and God talks to him, and he writes down what God tells him, and basically God's telling him, I arranged this for you so that you would see that I love you for you and not because of what you have to do, and not because of how you perform. And I'm telling you, in that moment, that hit me hard. It is as if God wrote those words to say that directly to me in that moment. And I started feeling overwhelmed. And I didn't know what to do in that moment. I just got up and I went to the bathroom in the cafe, and I'm starting to lose it in the bathroom of the cafe. And I'm like, what is wrong with me? What is going on? This is not me. This is not something I do on a normal basis. But it became very, very clear that God was trying to tell me something. And he was trying to say, for too much of your life, you have subconsciously believed that I'm disappointed in you, and that you need to earn my love. He's saying, that's not how I feel about you. I love you right now, right here where you are. And that was a huge thing for me. See, what I realized was that there was part of me that didn't really believe I was worth being loved that freely. A part of me believed that love had to be earned. I knew God loved me the way I knew that Harrisburg is the capital of Pennsylvania. But I didn't always feel it. And I didn't let it change me. I didn't let it overwhelm me. And I think a lot of us live right there. And some of us struggle to receive God's love because maybe we've seen a distorted version of Him in the church at times. Or maybe we've experienced loss or suffering and we wonder, does God even care about me? Or we look at our past and we look and say, man, if God really knew me, and there's no way He would love me. But this is the heart of Christmas. God didn't wait for you to become lovable. He didn't love you at your best. Paul tells us in Romans 5:8, while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Not when we cleaned ourselves up, not when we figured it all out, not when we stopped being difficult people, at our worst, at our lowest, at our most unlovable. That's when He came. The God of the universe chose to become a baby, to step into our mess, to step into flesh, to serve, to suffer, to give His life. Why? Because He loved you. Just think about it for a moment. Think about the lowest point in your life. The moment you're most ashamed of. The version of yourself that you hope nobody sees. That's the version of you that Jesus chose to love. And when we let that sink in, when we stop explaining it away, when we stop arguing with it and we just receive it, it changes us. Because love received becomes love given. And that's exactly what we see in Zacchaeus. As we continue Zacchaeus' story, Zacchaeus receives the gift of extravagant love from Jesus. And how does he respond? Like this in verse 8. But Zacchaeus stood up and said to the Lord, "Look, Lord, here and now I give half my possessions to the poor. And if I have cheated anybody out of anything, I will pay back 4 times the amount." Zacchaeus responds to Jesus' love by giving extravagant love to the people around him, the very people who despised him. Love received produces love given. Now, for Zacchaeus, that love took on the form of restitution and trying to repair the broken relationships that he had with the community around him. Kind of just like the Grinch returning the presents. So what should we do? What should we do? How do we deal with the difficult people in our lives this Christmas? Well, it starts with Jesus. It has to start with Jesus in our lives. This Christmas, I want us to spend some time contemplating the birth of Jesus. What did it mean that God was willing to give up heaven, to come down, to become human, to go through all of the hardships and the pain of growing up and being human for us? I want us to spend some time contemplating the death and resurrection of Jesus, all of the things that Jesus went through for us. Another great way to do this is to reflect on your year with the specific lens of looking through all of the ways that God showed up in your life this year, all of the ways in which God tried to love you this year. And write them down as you track back through that. That's one of the things I've been doing the last couple weeks. I've been going back and reading my journal entries over the year. And I found myself at times almost overwhelmed at all that Jesus has done for me this year. All of the times where he stepped in a moment and loved me in a way I wasn't expecting. Loved me in a way that was beyond what I could have even imagined. Take some time this year. Let Jesus' love into your heart. Let it overwhelm you. Let it get you to the point where you're not just thinking that Jesus loves you, where you know it in the core of your being. And what you'll find is that you will be in a much better place to deal with the difficult people in your life when you understand and live in the reality of how much Jesus loves you. The second thing we can do is decide to serve. Decide to serve the people around you. You always see these pieces around the holidays of like, how many ways to deal with your family this holiday? And a lot of them are really dumb and are really ridiculous, kind of like how to win a political argument with your family at Thanksgiving, or how to deal with your uncle, or anything like that. But I did hear one recently that was really good, and I actually thought it was a really good piece of advice. It was someone responding to a person who felt like their entire family thought and believed differently than them. And every time they went to their family, they were feeling judged. He was like, how do I deal with this? How do I show them that that's not who I am? And so the person responded with this piece of advice. And he told them, go to your family event and do the dishes. And I thought that was really interesting. He said, here's the deal. Serve your family. Do things to serve your family that they are not expecting. Because in those moments, when they see you serving them, that's going to create some cognitive dissonance. Wait a second, this is the person I think this about? And you never know how serving them might open up an opportunity for you for a discussion at a later time. And I think that's great advice. And it's not surprising that this is the tactic that Jesus took as well. If we look at Philippians 2, verse 5, it says, in your relationships with one another, have the same mindset as Christ Jesus. So we're supposed to adopt the same mindset that Jesus had when he came to us. So what was that? Who, being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage, but rather he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness. As we relate to each other, let's follow Jesus' example. Jesus' strategy for loving us was to serve people who didn't deserve to be served. So what should we do? When we encounter difficult people we know we're going to encounter this season, let us choose the path of serving those people. Let us adopt the mindset of looking for opportunities to serve those people around us. And this doesn't have to be anything crazy or anything dramatic. If you're dealing with family, For some, you might be able to just say, hey, I'm going to bring a snack to this family outing that I know that person really likes. For you, it might be going out of your way to be kind and courteous and friendly, even when they're not. Or maybe it is simply doing the dishes at your Christmas meal without being asked. Now, there's always times and there's always people that we have to encounter that are so hurt or so broken and damaged that the most loving thing we can do is to limit our exposure to them. That might be the case. Or where you need to set loving boundaries with people. So there are examples where something like that needs to happen. But look for opportunities to serve as best we can. Now, you might encounter difficult people who are not family members, who are just random people out there. Look for the ordinary moments where you have the opportunity to serve. Give the harried and grumpy cashier a smile and a word of encouragement, because they're dealing with a lot of people. Here's one. If you're out in the stores this week and the lines are super long, let somebody in line in front of you. Let somebody in line in front of you. That's a great way. Give your prime parking spot to somebody else in the parking lot at Target this week. There's all sorts of ways we can do this. In fact, I encountered one last week when I was in New York. I was in a coffee shop, and I was like fifth person in line. I'm standing there looking at something on my phone, and 5 minutes have gone by, I realize I'm still the fifth person in line. Like, nobody has moved. I look up, and the baristas, there's two of them back there, and they're scrambling around, and they're trying to apologize to every single person. Finally, the line starts moving. I get up there, and this, like, you could see on her face, she was in rough shape. So I just looked at her and said, how are you doing? Are you okay? She's like, sorry for the wait. I'm like, I'm not in a hurry. It's okay. It's fine. And you could just see, like, in the moment, she just calmed down a little bit. And, like, we have the opportunity to do that for people. We have the opportunity to be that moment where they just calm down a little bit, where they just get that moment of encouragement, that moment of break. Find opportunities to do that this week. And as we close today, let us take back to the heart of Christmas. Before the shepherds, before the angels, before the manger, there was a decision. A decision by God to move towards us. Not when we had it all together, not when we were easy to love, but when we were broken and messy, and if we're being honest, when we were difficult. Christmas is a reminder that God didn't wait for you to come to him. He came to you. The God of the universe chose to become small, chose to become vulnerable, chose a manger instead of the throne. Why? Because he loved you. And before he asks you to change anything, to fix anything, to prove anything, he offers himself as a gift. So whether you're here today and you've been following Jesus for years, whether you're not even sure you're a believer yet, the invitation for Christmas is simple. Receive the gift. Receive the gift. When that love is truly received, it doesn't stop with us. It begins to move through us. And there's a simple way that you can carry this with you this week, through the week of Christmas. If you want to respond on your connection cards, there's an opportunity to do that. And that's simply to say this: I will choose to receive the gift of Jesus' love this week. Whether it's for the first time or whether it's receiving it in a way that you actually feel it, where it actually overwhelms you. And then turn around and give that same love to at least one person this week. Can we do that? And don't reverse the order either. We can serve people, but let's start with letting and receiving the love of God. So as you head into the busy weeks, the family gatherings, the difficult moments, go knowing this, that you are deeply loved. God is moving towards you. And the wonder of Christmas is still unfolding.
Thanks again for listening. Any step you take towards Jesus is a step in the right direction. You can find out more about us at crbic.org. That's crbic.org.